Welcome to the Sunday morning worship service of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church in Naperville, Illinois for May 29th, 2022. I'm Reverend Connie Grand, interim minister of this congregation. We are so glad that you are here, whether you are present in the sanctuary this morning or watching remotely. It is so good to be together. To keep us all as safe as possible, we'll remain masked, except that those of us on the chancel will remove our masks to speak from the microphone. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many paths to truth and meaning, and we support one another on our spiritual and religious journeys. Whether you are a member or friend of this congregation or have recently discovered us, we are glad that you are with us this morning. Whoever you are and wherever you are welcome here.
Good morning. I'm Caroline Bailey, Worship Associate for today's service. After the service today, join Reverend Connie for social time, 11:30 to noon by Zoom. You will be assigned to an automatically generated breakout room for a half hour of conversation with a small group of people. A discussion question related to the service will be provided. And today at noon, join Scott Thompson and Mike Winter for Science Sunday. It is noon in person or on YouTube. Today's topic will be the importance of science literacy. So the Zoom links for today's social time and today's Science Sunday can be found on the church website under Here's What's Happening. Next Sunday, please bring a flower or a few for our traditional flower celebration service at 10:30, and you will then take a different flower home. Today we have a special announcement from the nominating committee. The election for open positions on the Board of Trustees and for the nominating committee will take place at the annual meeting, which is Sunday, June 5th at 11:30. The nominating committee would like to present the following candidates. For Board President, Ann Ariano. For Trustee at Large, Caroline Bailey, that's me. For member of the nominating committee, Chris Knight. Also for a member of the nominating committee, Carol Manthe. There is a direct link titled Annual Meeting in the top menu of the church website, leading to all information about the meeting. As we light the chalice, these words by Lisa Day. Why a flaming chalice, the question comes. It's the cup of life, we answer, a cup of blessings overflowing, a cup of water to quench our spirit's thirst, a cup of wine for celebration and dedication, the flame of truth, the fire of purification, oil for anointing, healing. Out of chaos, fear, and horror, thus was the symbol crafted a generation ago. So may it be for us in these days of uncertainty, sorrow, and rage, and a light to warm our souls and guide us home.
Our opening words are by Gretchen Haley. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? In these days, we find ourselves too often stuck with these questions on repeat. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? We grasp at signs and markers, articles of news and analysis, Facebook memes and forwarded emails, as if the new zodiac capable of forecasting all that life may yet bring our way. As if we could prepare, as if life had ever made any promises of making sense or turning out the way we'd thought, as if we are not also actors in this still unfolding story. For this hour we gather to surrender to the mystery, to release ourselves from the needing to know, the yearning to have it all already figured out, and also the burden of believing we either have all the control or none. Here in our song and our silence, our stories and our sharing, we make space for a new breath, a new healing, a new possibility to take root. That is courage forged in the fire of our coming together and felt in the spirit that comes alive in this act of faith. That we believe still a new world is possible, that we are creating it already, here and now.
It is time to gather. This weekend is Memorial Day weekend, a time when we remember people who used to be a part of our lives. My story today is a picture book by C.C. Ming called Always Remember. In the end of his very last day, Old Turtle swam his last swim and took his last breath. With his life complete, the gentle waves took him away. By dawn, everyone who knew Old Turtle knew he was gone. The turtles playing in the reef remembered how he taught them to swim. Old Turtle had been a good teacher, and the turtles would always remember. The broad-backed, humpback whale remembered how Old Turtle swam alongside of her and kept her company when she became separated from her pod. Old Turtle had been a good friend, and the whale would always remember. The sea otters remembered how Old Turtle would dive and play with them and make them laugh. Old Turtle had loved to have fun, and the otters would always remember. The dolphins remembered how Old Turtle was curious about the unknown and bravely swam far out to sea. Old Turtle explored the darkest of the waters and discovered glittery jewels to show his friends. And the dolphins would always remember. Once, a terrible storm tossed and turned the ocean for 3 long days and nights, and a starfish was torn from her rock and swept away. When the waves became calm again, Old Turtle looked for her and found her and carried her home. And Starfish would always remember. When Old Turtle found a manatee tangled in a fishing net, he snipped and pulled and would not stop until the manatee was free. And the manatee told the story to his children, and they told the story to their children. Old Turtle would never be forgotten. Once upon a time, there was an Old Turtle, and he was a wonderful teacher and friend, and he loved to laugh and have fun, and he explored the unknown and discovered great things, and he showed kindness and strength, and he made his world a better place. And when Old Turtle died, the ocean took him back. But what he left behind was only the beginning. So we're now at the time where the youth, there are no little ones here today, if the youth would like to go with me and go on a monarch caterpillar hunt, you can join me, or you can stay with your parents and continue with the service.
I don't know, that monarch and caterpillar hunt sounds like pretty much fun. But if you're remaining here in the sanctuary, please rise in body or in spirit. Join in singing our song of affirmation, and you may want to remain risen for the responsive reading and hymn that follow. Please join in reading responsively. From the loneliness of troubled times, we come into the dwelling place of togetherness. We come from fear that all is lost. We come into the comfort of each other's arms. We come from darkness. We come into the refuge of fading dreams. We come from despair that walks alone. We come into the dwelling place of generations. We come and our hymn is "We Are a Gentle, Angry People." we hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows. As the Russian assault on Ukraine continues, we focus our thoughts and energies on safety and strength for the Ukrainian people. On this Memorial Day weekend, we remember military service members who gave their lives to protect the United States. We are horrified by the deaths of school children and teachers by gun violence in Uvalde, Texas this week, and by the mass shooting in Buffalo such a short time before. As always, we remember those who are experiencing losses of various kinds and those facing health challenges. And even when the cares of the world weigh on us, may we find joy in our connections with each other and in the pleasures that life holds. Let us care for one another and for ourselves in all the ways we can. As we hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows, whether spoken or unspoken, let's take a moment to be quiet together. If Love Be There by Robert T. Weston. This day, setting aside all that divides me from others, this day, remembering that the world is beautiful to one who is willing that it be so, and that into the open, eager heart, the beauty enters in if love be there. This day I will make a part of the song of life. There may be grief, but if there be love, it will be overcome. There may be pain, but it can be borne with dignity and courage. There may be difficulty, but it can be turned to strength. Remembering that the world is beautiful if I will let it be so for others whom I meet, this day I will make a part of the song of life. The song Nothing More by the Alternate Roots was written in response to the 2012 shootings at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, which is not far from the Connecticut town where the band that originated the song is based. The song has been used as an anthem for the movement to end gun violence and has a universal message. We are love, we are one. Becky, Mason, and Jim recorded this song in February.
The programs and operations of the church are supported by the voluntary contributions of members and friends. Each month, we share our offerings with an organization nominated by the congregation and selected by our special offering team. Our special offering recipient for May is 6,000 Moms, which is a gathering of women committed to assist, comfort, and defend those seeking legal asylum in the United States, as well as those negatively affected by our current immigration system. The group has reunited families separated at the border, identifying their needs and helping them move toward independence. This morning's offering to support the work of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church and of 6,000 Moms is given and received in a spirit of generosity and gratitude. This poem, Could Have, by Wisława Szymborska, was inspired by the experience of Holocaust survivors. It could have happened. It had to happen. It happened earlier, later, nearer, farther off. It happened, but not to you. You were saved because you were the first. You were saved because you were the last. Alone, with others, on the right, on the left. Because it was raining, because of the shade, because the day was sunny. You were in luck, there was a forest. You were in luck, there were no trees. You were in luck, a rake, a hook, a beam, a break, a jam, a turn, a quarter inch, an instant. You were in luck. Just then, a straw went floating by. As a result, because, although, despite, what would have happened if a hand, a foot, within an inch, a hair's breadth from an unfortunate coincidence? So you're here, still dizzy from another dodge, close shave, reprieve. One hole in the net you slipped through? I couldn't be more shocked or speechless. Listen how your heart pounds inside me.
This week, 19 school children and 2 teachers were murdered in Uvalde, Texas. The week before, 10 members of the Black community in Buffalo, New York were killed. A column in the New York Times this week noted that by now, the story of American gun violence is unsurprising. Mass shootings happen frequently. The list from just the past decade includes supermarkets in Buffalo and Boulder, Colorado, a rail yard in San Jose, California, a birthday party in Colorado Springs, a convenience store in Springfield, Missouri, a synagogue in Pittsburgh, churches in Sutherland Springs, Texas, and in Charleston, South Carolina, a Walmart in El Paso, a FedEx warehouse in Indianapolis, a music festival in Las Vegas, massage parlors in the Atlanta area, a Waffle House in Nashville, a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida, and a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. The columnist lists the names of schools where mass shootings have occurred: Sandy Hook Elementary School, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, Oxford High School, Santa Fe High School, Columbine High School. Robb Elementary School in Uvalde has joined this horrific list. An NPR interview with co-founders of the Violence Project, which studies gun violence, mass shootings, and violent extremism, finds commonalities between the Uvalde and Buffalo shooters. They say usually what's motivating these shootings is an element of self-hatred, hopelessness, despair, anger that's turned outward to the world. They say the shooters have the desire to have that pain and that anger be known to the world, to have us all watch and witness to it, to hear their names, to see their pictures, to read what they have left behind for us to read. These are public performances, they say, meant for us to watch. And so we try to sort out how and why these terrible acts of violence have occurred and how they could have been prevented. The problems are complex and interrelated. Solutions, including gun control, mental health resources, and more effective security measures, have been proposed. Red flag laws seem to have potential for addressing an intersection of these issues. As another columnist outlines, the idea is simple. If a person exhibits behavior indicating that they might be a threat to themselves or others, such as suicidal ideation or violent fantasies, a member of their family, a school official, or a police officer can go to court to secure an order that permits police to seize their weapons and prohibit them from purchasing any additional weapons so long as the order lasts. The issues are complex, perhaps more complex than any of these, perhaps deeper than any of these. Societal, cultural, difficult. In 2016, following the killing of 49 people at Latin Night at a gay nightclub in Orlando, comedian Samantha Bee began her show by addressing the shooting. I'm tempted to quote her remarks exactly, since the expletive she used conveys the depth of her pain, anger, and frustration, and mine too. But I'll paraphrase. She said, after a massacre, the standard operating procedure is you stand on stage and deliver some well-meaning words about how we will get through this together, how love wins, how love conquers hate. That is great, that is beautiful, but you know what? Expletive it. She said, I am too angry for that. Love does not win unless we start loving each other enough to start fixing our expletiving problems. Love wins, love conquers hate. I believe this to be true. But as Samantha Bee said, love does not win unless we start loving each other enough to start fixing our expletive problems. Love does not win unless we start loving each other enough to start fixing our problems. I believe this to be true, too. Following the killing in Las Vegas of 59 people and the injury of many more, Stephen Colbert started his late-night show by saying, without any expletives, he began by saying, "By all means offer thoughts and prayers, but think about what you need to do, and then pray for the courage to do it." Yet again this week, an act of violence and hatred has shattered lives. And the same thing happened the week before. After the shootings at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut 10 years ago, a young woman told me that she was more deeply affected by that event than she had been by any of the other tragedies that had already happened in her time. Maybe, she said, I'm feeling it so much because they were children and because they were in their school where it's supposed to be safe. Maybe, she said, it's because this makes me feel like something could happen to anybody, anytime. I responded that it really is true that something could happen to anybody, anytime. And I suggested that the only thing any of us can do with that fact is to make our lives count. It could have been us, it could have been our loved ones. And after all, in a very real way, it was us. It was our loved ones. The trauma doesn't end with those who are immediately affected, but ripples outward. Perhaps we identify with victims of a public tragedy most closely when we have a particular personal connection or affinity to the people or the place. I've been there, I could have been there. Sometimes this is literally true, but it is always metaphorically true. There are 0 degrees of separation between human beings. We are always connected. There are no degrees of separation. A public tragedy makes demands on our individual resources as well as our collective ones. A public tragedy is a personal one, too. For me, the poem Could Have conveys the truth that even when we are the survivors of tragedy, rather than the victims, we are still the victims. It could have been you, it could have been me. It was you, it was me. It could have been my loved one, it was my loved one. Listen how your heart pounds inside me. When we are faced with tragedy, either personal or public, how do we go on? The human condition is to be aware that we are alive and that we have to die, as Unitarian Universalist minister Forrest Church expressed as a recurring theme in his writings. He wrote about love and death even as he faced his own imminent demise. Church wrote, there are so many instances in our daily lives when our fears stand in the way of our potential to love. How many ways we find to armor and protect ourselves. We sense the risk, of course. Every time we open ourselves up, every time we share ourselves with another, every time we commit ourselves to a cause or to a task that awaits our doing, we risk so very much. We risk disappointment, we risk failure, we risk being rebuffed or being embarrassed or being inadequate, and beyond these things, we risk the enormous pain of loss. For instance, Church wrote, however much we try, we cannot fully protect our loved ones from fatal illness or accidental death. However much we love them, we cannot insulate them from failure and disappointment. However much we would wish to, there are times when we are powerless to heal or save. Church said, we pay for love with pain, but love is worth the cost. In our lives, we are repeatedly faced with ordinary losses and extraordinary ones too. It is the extraordinary losses that are the stuff of tragedy, disasters, natural or unnatural, that end lives before their time, that create suffering beyond what might be expected in the usual course of events. When faced with tragedy, we ask why. And when the causes of tragedy are clear, the reasons often are not. Perhaps a defining characteristic of tragedy is that it stops us in our tracks and makes us wonder how we can possibly go on. Unitarian Universalist minister Randy Becker has known tragedy in his own life, including the death of a teenage daughter by a drunk driver. When asked what resources his Unitarian Universalist faith offered to him, he wrote, "My Unitarian Universalist faith tells me that this tragedy is not judgment. There is something to be learned about self, about life, about existence in all events. You can have hope that there can be meaning on the other side of any loss. While there may be no easy answers aren't adequate responses to hard questions. Trust yourself. Grief is a natural response to loss, something with its own pattern, timetable, and gift. Despite what you are feeling right now, life is still a great gift. The weakness one feels in grief is not a weakness of faith, only a tiredness of spirit. We can't decide what will happen to us, but we can decide how we will react to what happens. You are not defined by what you have lost unless you want it so, but rather by what you have and do and love. And finally, you are not alone. And so, in the face of tragedy, there is a decision point. In the face of tragedy, there is a point at which we decide to go on, to move forward, to make it count. There is a point of turning from despair to hope, from fear to love. And of course, this point is not necessarily a singular event, but a series of steps taken one step at a time, sometimes 2 steps forward and 1 step back, maybe even 1 step forward and 2 steps back. Retreating for a time may be necessary, yet the overall trajectory is moving forward nonetheless. After tragedy, life will not be the same. After tragedy, life shouldn't be the same. There will be a new normal to be found. There will be a new normal to be created. You are not defined by what you have lost, but rather by what you have and do and love. With adequate support, the human capacity for resilience seems almost limitless. Individually and collectively, we survive tragedies that we would not have imagined were survivable. One definition of resilience is the capacity of a system, enterprise, or a person to maintain its core purpose and integrity in the face of dramatically changed circumstances. Researchers have identified characteristics of nature as well as nurture that predispose some individuals to resilience in the face of trauma and adversity. Not surprisingly, it has also been shown that the ability to bounce back is aided by a personal spiritual cosmology or religious faith and by social factors, including participation in religious community. As Unitarian Universalists, our religious faith does not provide easy answers, but rather provides the place to acknowledge that some questions are unanswerable, some events are unexplained or even inexplicable, and that life is yet endurable and meaningful. Our religious faith offers a community of people who remind us by their presence, cooperation, and support that we are not alone. In the face of tragedy, life will not ever again be the same, but life will indeed go on. How will we make our lives and the lives of those we have lost count? There are 0 degrees of separation between human beings. We are not alone. And love does not win unless we love each other enough to start fixing our problems. In the hymn we are about to sing, we say that we'll keep on until we find love, hope, peace, and joy. I suggest that we keep on until we create love, hope, peace, and joy. Reminded of the words of San Juan de la Cruz, if you put love where there is no love, you will find love. If you put peace where there is no peace, you will find peace. If you put hope where there is no hope, you will find hope. Please rise in body or in spirit now and join in singing our hymn, There Is More Love Somewhere.
As we extinguish the chalice flame, these words are by Nadine McSpadden. During our darkest moments, still there is light. When facing our biggest challenges, still there is light. When all we can do is put one foot in front of the other, still there is light. When we can't see our way out, still there is light. when all we can do to help is hold someone's hand as they cry, still there is light. We are the light for ourselves and for one another. Always there is light.
And may we live our lives fully and creatively so that we may be a blessing to ourselves, to each other, and to all those whose lives we touch.